a local transportation authority. We will, Supervisor DiMattei, will you lead us in the pledge? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And before we do roll call, okay. It is good to have it's good to have folks who've been on this board for a while, but we do have two new members, and I'd like Director Baker to Brown. I'm sorry, Brown Baker. That was a different guy.
It happens all the time.
Yeah, that was a different guy.
That's how I get the extra recognition done.
That was a different.
Wrong, I may make a big deal. Everybody remembers.
Would you tell us a little bit about yourself and your pins? I think.
Yeah.
Well, I grew up in Montana, but I've been in Lincoln for 20 years. My wife's a lifelong member of that community, and I don't see any reason that we would ever leave. I have 3 children, 2 of them still in high school at Lincoln. One's moved out, but we keep in close contact with him. I don't know what else you want to. Oh, a friend of mine asked me to run for city council, and I did, and I absolutely love serving people, and I'm excited to be able to serve here on the board.
All right, profession, hobbies.
I love to fix things, restore things, or build or make things. That's kind of the hobbies, but I love spending time with family.
Great. Supervisor or Director DiMattei.
Thank you, Bruce. Happy to be here. A little bit about myself. I've been in Placer County 8 years now, 29 years. Served on a planning commission for 4 years. Was very grateful to be elected to this seat and have the opportunity to do this. I am also a mandarin farmer. My family's been farming here for 160 years, I think, plus. I can't remember. So we're still farming mandarins. In fact, I had to go deliver mandarins this morning to Roseville School District, so we're very fortunate to provide their students with mandarins for however long we can grow them for the season. So hobbies, skiing, and trying to stay in shape so I can eat good food. That's it. But
thank you for that. Now, if Sylvie, if you can do the roll call.
Will do. Broadway.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Cortez.
Here.
DiMattei.
here.
Dowden Calvillo.
Present.
Howdeshelt.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Wilkins.
Here.
All right, we got a quorum.
Great. Now I'll ask Sylvie if she would read the meeting procedures.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the January 22nd, 2025 regular meeting of the Placer County Transportation Planning Agency, Placer County Airport Land Use Commission, Western Placer Consolidated Transportation Services Agency, and the Placer County Local Transportation Authority. Agendas are available outside the chambers on the back table or on the PCTPA website. All comments from the public should be directed to the board. All speakers must speak from the podium as the meeting is being recorded. For those who are joining us by Zoom webinar, you can signal you wish to speak by clicking the raise hand button on the Zoom window. If you are joining by phone, press *9 and staff will call out individuals who have indicated they wish to speak. If you would like to comment on an item that is not listed on the agenda, please do so under public comment listed as item F on the agenda. In addition, the Brown Act requires the public have an opportunity to comment on all items on the agenda. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. The time will be monitored, and once the yellow light appears at the podium, the speaker will have 1 minute to conclude their comments. Lastly, the board asks that you consider stating your name for the record this morning. Thank you for your participation.
Thank you, Sylvie. Mr. Click, agenda review?
No changes to the agenda, Chair.
All right, thanks very much. I would, before we get too far down the road and I forget, I'd like the board to consider on public comment, reducing public comment from 3 minutes to 2 minutes. We won't take an action today, but just consider it, and we'll think, we'll act accordingly in future meetings. AB 2449, I don't see Director Burris online, do you?
No, but no action needed relative to AB 2449.
Okay. The next item is approval of the December 4th, 2024 minutes.
If there's no public comment, Mr. Chair, I'll move adoption.
I second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Without Director Burris online, we can just take a voice vote, right? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Oh, yeah. All right. Next, we'll go to the public comment portion of our meeting. Those interested either in the chambers or online who wish to speak about an item that is not on the agenda may do so. Do we have anyone online? All right. We will move next to our consent calendar for the Placer County Transportation Planning Agency. It consists of 8 items. Anyone wish to remove anything from the consent calendar? If not, I'll take a motion on the consent calendar.
Move to approve.
Second?
Yeah.
You gotta be faster than Alice, okay?
That wasn't me, it was Amanda this time.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstentions? All right, next we go to our 9 a.m. public hearing on the Placer County zoning text amendment, consistency determination with Principal Planner, Transportation Planner David Melko.
Good morning, members of the commission. We're asking you to conduct a public hearing today on the consistency of Placer County's proposed zoning text amendments with the Placer County Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan. And then we're recommending that you find the proposed zoning text amendments consistent with the Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan. So I do have about 7 or 8 slides that would walk through proposal. So first and foremost, for new commissioners, the role of the Airport Land Use Commission were to adopt and maintain an Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan. We have one overall Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan that's composed of 3 airports. So each airport has an individual plan within that overall umbrella plan. One for Lincoln, one for Auburn, and one for Blue Canyon. And the second responsibility of the Airport Land Use Commission is to review changes to plans, zoning changes, rezones, specific plans, and any sort of building regulations within and near airports. There is a defined airport influence area around each airport, and it generally encompasses about a 2-mile area. And that projects within those areas are subject to Airport Land Use Commission review. So our responsibility is to look at what we call 4 factors of compatibility. We look at noise, aircraft noise. We look at safety issues. Basically, that's the number of people on the ground, depending upon the locations of the airport. Airspace protection, basically you're dealing with building height. And then overflight provisions. And overflight provisions basically are things that are included in deeds when you purchase a home. There is, amongst the many documents through escrow, there is something that indicates that you are in proximity to an airport. The commission has 3 potential determinations. You can find the proposal consistent with the Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan, consistent subject to conditions, or inconsistent based on specific conflicts. So Placer County's last comprehensive zoning ordinance amendment that came before the ALUC was in 2022. This particular proposal includes 19 changes to Placer County's code. 18 are in the zoning ordinance and 1's within the noise ordinance. And generally the amendments are, if they're shown in attachment 1 to the staff report, are to update and clarify various unclear and conflicting sections within the zoning ordinance or the county's noise ordinance, and also to comply with various new laws that come down through the state legislature, as well as address recent trends and technologies within the planning field, and to correct any errors or inconsistencies. And of course, there's always feedback from the Board of Supervisors and the public, and I didn't include it here, but also the County Planning Commission. So specifically, the amendments will clarify and correct existing code sections. They will amend various land use definitions. They will create a new land use for electric vehicle charging stations. I will note that within the compatibility plan, there are sections that deal with parking and transportation terminals, bus terminals, and consulting with our airport aviation consultant, Mead and Hunt. Electric vehicle charging stations would fall within those categories. So depending upon the specific land use that the electric vehicle charging station is associated with, it would be subject to that particular review. There's also changes to various standards for electric and barbed wire fencing in industrial and commercial areas, and new standards for signage, including digital displays. And then lastly, there is a change to the minimum lot size calculation and allowances for subdividing legal non-conforming parcels. This last provision here will not necessarily increase density with particular land uses. And bottom line would be that any change in lot size calculation and allowances is still subject to the airport land use compatibility requirements. The staff report shows the specific zoning text amendments in attachment 1. So this type of consistency analysis, this is not like the consistency analysis I have brought in the past, in terms of the Placer County Government Center, or when we had the housing rezones project, because you have particular items within those projects that you can look at noise, people subject to noise, people subject to safety issues, building height regulations. So these types of zoning text amendments are, as I noted earlier, are a variety of cleanup or the addition of the electric vehicle charging station land use. And so you can't really go through the traditional four-factor analysis. You can look at everything and say, well, will this particular item be impacted by aircraft noise? And the conclusion is no. Will this particular item create safety issues with respect to more people on the ground, or create building heights that don't necessarily are consistent with the airport land use compatibility? And the answer to that, again, is no, and likewise with noise. So there are no conflicts that I have seen through the zoning text amendments that deal with safety, height, and noise policies. And as I indicated previously, the provision to change the minimum lot size would not result in or permit new development greater at a density or intensity than is already permitted under existing regulations. And once again, those land uses would be subject to the airport land use compatibility plan. And so, lastly, the zoning text amendments don't result in any changes to land use. So the bottom line is we're recommending that there's no air quality, no airport land use compatibility impacts associated with the zoning text amendments. So we're recommending that you find the zoning text amendments consistent with the airport land use compatibility plan, and that you authorize the executive director to submit a consistency determination letter to Placer County indicating your finding. And we have a technical advisory committee, and they have concurred with the staff recommendation. And I'd be glad to take any questions.
Any questions from the board okay. Any members of,
I did have one really quick question. I was just wondering what the trajectory is for these amendments. I mean, it's going to come before us, but when is the county expecting to adopt changes?
We have Callie Cecil Kettinger here, and she might be able to speak to that. She's the staff person at Placer County, and the timeline.
All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Callie Kettinger Cecil, Supervising Planner with the Planning Services Division of Placer County. The timeline for this is we are anticipating that we will be returning to the Planning Commission as well as the board in the spring. We have done a town hall as well as a workshop with the Planning Commission, and we've also presented this information to several of the municipal advisory councils.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have one question.
Sure.
Probably for Kelly. For the Auburn Airport, we just extended the overlay. So with that extension of the overlay, this automatically goes into that, covers that overlay, correct? And if there's a new change in overlays, does this get adopted to that as well? Or how does that work?
These zoning text amendments are really relatively minor cleanups to the zoning code, and if and when projects are brought forward and they're in an airport compatibility overflight zone, then there's a consistency determination. These changes don't necessarily impact that. If a project comes forward, regardless of where the location of the overflight zone is, there's still a requirement to undergo that compatibility analysis.
But if it wasn't changed, but then the overlay, as it was extended in Auburn, obviously will change the zoning for those areas, correct?
Right, and we're not looking at changing the zoning. This is changes to the zoning code.
Okay.
So we're not looking at modifying any zoning of properties.
Okay, great, thank you.
That's an important question to get clarified on. Anyone else? Nothing from the Lincoln Airport? Okay, great. Any members of the public online that would like to comment on this? There aren't any. I'll bring it back and ask what the pleasure of the board is.
I'll move approval.
All right,
I'll second.
all right. All right, we have, what are we? Staff's recommendation? We're moving and approving staff's recommendation? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstaining? All right. I've lost my place already. Next, we'll have a presentation on the Regional Transportation Plan 2050 and the preliminary draft project list by Corey Peterson.
Good morning, members of the board. My name is Corey Peterson. I'm a senior planner here at the agency. I'm going to present to you one of the next milestones we have on our regional transportation plan update, and that's our preliminary draft project list. But first, I wanted to kind of give a little background information for the benefit of our two new board members on what the RTP is and what the work we've done the last couple of years. The RTP is our long-range transportation plan. So this is a state-required document that we adopt every 5 years, and it looks out about 25 years and projects out projects, programs, policies, objectives, and how we want to shape and grow our transportation network here in Placer County. So really, it's very much a vision document for the agency, and we work very closely with SACOG and coordinate their blueprint to their Metropolitan Transportation Plan Sustainable Community Strategy, or MTP SCS for short. Always the mouthful of the acronyms. But really, it's informed by public outreach and board direction. It kind of helps set the vision for our network and help us to direct agency activities as we go about our jobs. So what we've done so far is about 2 years ago, we kicked off our most recent regional transportation plan updates. That's the RTP 2050. So the horizon year of our plan is 2050. We brought a draft policy element to the board back in May of 2023, and then also conducted, a couple of rounds of outreach back in 2022 and 23. We did online surveys. We were out in your communities doing pop-up events and talking to people about their transportation priorities. Most recently, we've been working with SACOG on their preferred land use scenario that was adopted by the SACOG board back in 2024. So what this is as an MPO, or Metropolitan Transportation Organization, SACOG is required to consider land use in their long-range transportation plan. They're required to consider build-out of future homes and commercial, and marry that up with the assumed transportation projects. So we work very closely with SACOG as well as all of your local agencies on that. So in developing the project list, one thing I wanted to kind of note and set the stage is that our project list, because we are within the SACOG region, has to be consistent with the SACOG project list within the blueprint. So essentially, it has to be the same project list. There has to be, a lot of consistency between the two. So we work very closely with their staff to develop the project list, and we held a joint call for projects with all of your agencies back in early 22. And then for the last 2 years, we've been working with SACOG staff and your local jurisdictions to essentially refine the list. to make sure it meets regional goals and land use assumptions, that, you know, it makes sense for what's in the SACOG plan, that it reflects all of your priorities, and also that it has a reasonable chance of meeting the greenhouse gas reduction requirements that are set by the California Air Resources Board. So this spreadsheet shows kind of a preliminary project costs for the project list. These are subject to change, but this is kind of where we're at this moment in time. Right now, the total need is about 6.2 billion in project costs, and that's in today's dollars. And then when you account for inflationary factors, it's just over 9 billion in year of expenditure. So what's next? Right now, we're evaluating fiscal constraint and kind of the reasonably expected revenues. The reason that we're bringing this project list to you now is because in order to do our environmental impact report for the RTP, we need to have an approved project list. So we're bringing basically a draft preliminary project list. We're going to come back in the fall with the draft document that will have a fully fleshed out fiscal constraint with expected revenues, as well as the final project list. That EIR is expected to take over this winter and spring. We'll be preparing the draft document in the spring and then bring it out for public review over this summer. We expect to adopt the RTP by the end of this year. So with that, our recommended action is to approve the preliminary draft 2050 RTP project list that's shown in attachment A of the staff report, and the PCTPA TAC concurred with this recommendation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from the board?
I just had one question. Really, it's not pertaining to the list so much, but I just noted that the Highway 49 sidewalk gap closure project, it's slated for completion in 2035? Really? How long has it been going on?
So the sidewalk gap closure project, that we'll have to look into that to see if that's an error, but it's actually going to construction in a few months, and Matt's going to cover that in his executive director's report.
Okay, yeah. There's two pieces of it. There was that other part that's on mile 4.67, and I remember that, and that's supposed to be done like in 2025. So
Okay.
there was
so
just that
The 2 and the
2035 date.
3
it may be
the 2 and the 3 are close to each other on the keyboard.
So anyway,
we'll look into that.
That was really my only question, but SACOG, as you said, did adopt this list in November, and
Yes.
so I appreciate your putting this together. I'm fine with it. No other questions, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions? Just a request, Corey. I think it was last June, SACOG had a session on transportation funding, federal and state, and I can resurrect it, or if you can resurrect it and circulate it. I think you were there, Alice. It was very informative, because you get all these STPs and STIPs and, you know, all these acronyms and all these funding pots, and understanding what they are is, I go back to that as just a reference. So if you know, it would be good to circulate that, I think.
Sure, we can do that.
Anyone come online that would like to comment on this? All right, I'll take a motion on the action requested.
I'll move approval.
I second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Those abstaining? All right. We'll get Alice out of here soon. I think the next item is that, Measure B.
Yeah, and if I could, Chair. So this was something that last year we had talked about in the light of, just falling short of Measure B. We wanted to do some level of analysis. So Corey has gotten all the data from elections, and so we're going to show you some information by precinct. So Corey's going to kind of walk through 4 or 5 slides just on the data, and then we can get into a conversation about it. But
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you, Matt.
go ahead, Corey.
All right, so I'm going to show you a few slides. There's going to be a bunch of maps and some color gradations on showing the results by precinct. But first, I wanted to set a kind of a higher level view. This shows the percentages of yes and no votes on Measure B by city. So this is data that you may have already seen. This was sent out by the campaign a few weeks ago. So the only city that passed the measure by a 2/3 majority was Lincoln, followed by Roseville in 63 and Rockland 61. It's important to note the required threshold, of course, is 2/3 majority, and the measure fell short by about 2.8%, or as Matt has mentioned many times, it's about 2,000 votes. And then you can see the color gradation on the map. This next one makes it a little more clear. These are all the precincts total in the 3 cities. The ones in green are ones that passed the Measure B by a 2/3 majority. The ones in yellow fell short of the 2/3 majority. So there's about 11 precincts in Lincoln, 8 in Roseville, mostly in the northwest corner, and then 2 in Rockland. What I wanted to point out about this is that the majority of those who supported the measure either live along 65 or use 65 daily, or live along a corridor that feeds directly into 65. Like you'll notice along Blue Oaks, roughly where the Roseville precincts are, is along Blue Oaks Boulevard, North Sunset Boulevard in Rockland, and then Lincoln and Ferrari Ranch in Lincoln. This is the same slide, but it now shows essentially the percentages for each individual precinct. I won't dwell on this too much, but I did want to point out that if you look at the green precincts that passed the measure, that it was still pretty close, and the ones that did pass, most of them did so barely. And then you can also see kind of how the spread went out across all the precincts. So this next one shows a simple majority, and really we wanted to show this to show that by and large there's widespread a majority support from voters for Measure B. The ones in green passed if the threshold was 50% or a simple majority, would have passed in the green precincts and not in the yellow. So again, the wide variety of voters across the 3 cities supported Measure B, but obviously fell short of the required 2/3 threshold. And then this last slide, this shows a comparison of Measure M, which is from 2016. And just as a refresher, Measure M was a countywide measure. So you'll show some colorations outside the 3 cities in the unincorporated areas, whereas Measure B was just within the 3 incorporated cities of Roseville, Rockland, and Lincoln. And with this, you'll see that the comparison between the 2016 and 2024, there is a decrease in percentage. Obviously, Measure B was in a post-SB1 world, post-inflation world, and we saw some change from that as a result. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions. And I don't know, Matt, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, Matt, you want to guide us through this conversation?
Yeah, I think
I'm sure you
I
have a lot
do.
of
So I wanted to, so there's a lot that can be unpacked, and there's a lot of opinions around this, and Corey was really, I think this slide is instructive. People might say, well, you fell short or you lost ground or whatever, between 2016 and 2024. I think it's important, as Corey's already noted, this is before SB1, which raises the fuel tax statewide, and then after SB1. This is also before COVID and after COVID, and before a lot of inflationary pressures and after a lot of inflationary pressures. So to me, folks who want to compare 16 to 24, it's like comparing LeBron James to Jordan. These are different games. These are different time periods. There is no comparison that can really be made, besides the fact that if you look at 2024, that's really where the state of California is. I also went and looked at all measures that passed since SB1, and only one has passed, and that was San Mateo. There's been a couple renewals, but no new measures, and it was a close one. So this isn't just a story about Placer or Southwest Placer. In fact, I think it's pretty remarkable we got the vote levels we got relative to the general election and everything else that was happening in the county. But what it really means is then, I think when we wrote the ballot language around SR 65 and what's in it for me, that was the right thing to do. And the vote totals by precinct and its location to the 65 corridor bear that out. So I think the strategy was sound, but to me it says, well, where do we go forward? We've been trying this since 08. We went in 16. We said no in 20. We didn't in 22, right? We got legislation passed in 18, AB 1413, and here we are in 2024. So should we do this again in 26 or 28? And My recommendation would be no, we shouldn't. Not because the fact of the matter is a 2/3 threshold in today's political environment, whether it be Placer County or even San Francisco, is just not something that's guaranteed. There are folks through CalCog and other RTPAs in California looking at trying to look at lowering the threshold to either a simple majority or 55. PCTPA will be at the table and work with our partners statewide to see if that's something that is possible. And I think if that is possible and we can get that done and we can have a threshold, as Corey showed with the data, that is less than 66.67, then we probably have a really serious conversation to have. But until that occurs, I think, well, let's just, try it again at 2/3. I don't know that that's probably good policy. We can watch it and have a conversation around it. And then it really leads us to, well, then if not that, what do we do about State Road 65? Because in truth, from a fiscal perspective, we're doing great. We're doing great with our transit. We're doing great with our active transportation. There is the looming issue of local streets and roads in the 3 municipalities and what they'll get into the future once we pass 500,000, and what the cities will have to do to replace those monies when they can no longer be flexed from transit to roads. But that's a decade off. So really it comes back to it's sort of like, what is the conversation we have about State Road 65? And I think that's where we really need to sort of take the agency conversation. If we're not going to have access to regional financing, how are we going to make the improvements to State Road 65? Is it sensible to think that we're ever going to do a third level $800 million flyover interchange between I-80 and State Road 65? Probably not in the near term. So if that's not something we can achieve because it's a lot of money, what can we do? Could it look like something where we use dynamic message signs and we use gantries and technology on Interstate 80 when you're still west of Douglas to get everybody lined up in the right lane? So if people are going local to Douglas or to Taylor, they hold to the right. If they want to get to Auburn and points east, they hold to the left. And so can we use demand management, supply management and technology to sort of get those queues lined up? And so what are the sorts of leaner technology-based things we can do to make that operational bottleneck operate as best as it can if we can't afford big capital improvements? So I'll pause there, but I think those are the sorts of conversations based in reality and funding reality we have to have about Interstate 80 and 65. And I'll just quickly, it's in my executive director's report, but I will let you know, but we're not stopping, right? We're going to be going for the RAISE grant. So we're going to be seeking $32 million, $25 million federal, leveraged with $7 million developer funding through Sparta to do the southbound, southbound only general purpose lane and aux lane, basically between Blue Oaks and Galleria, which is our most severe pinch point. So we're going to move forward with what we think we can afford. We've got a strategy around that. But beyond just today's board meeting, I think we have to have a broader conversation about how do we handle this very specific operational bottleneck in Southwest Placer.
Thanks. Recognizing that Board Member Doughton Cavallero has to leave shortly, I want to kind of structure this conversation, start with Board Member Broadway and then you, Board Member Doughton Cavallero.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to comment, first of all, I want to thank all those who were involved as we moved Measure B forward. It was unfortunate, even in looking at the Rockland numbers, what we found in Rockland was south of 80 individuals there just did not see, given current economics, given taxes, they did not see the impacts of 65. And as was mentioned, if you look along the corridor and where the votes were, they were strong there. Just north of 80, those residents actually perceived in conversations with them, and our messaging just wasn't clear enough for them. They felt that actually moving more money into 65 and 80 would push more traffic on to Sunset, which is one of our arterial roadways. And they perceived that and flow over onto Midas, which is a neighborhood arterial. And so with that mindset, you can see those numbers directly that we struggled there. The fact that we know essentially that 38% are going to be hard nose, just right off the bat, we already know there's a struggle. Coupled with the fact that we had one group that came out in opposition to it, I feel misrepresented a lot and took away an opportunity to give people the ability to make their own decisions. And through their mailing of information and their use of social media, misrepresented really what we were attempting to do. And as a result, our residents are all going to suffer. We're going to work extremely hard moving forward to find solutions. The RAISE grant, had conversations with Matt and actually with the Chamber CEO about some letters of support that we're seeking to help move that forward. If you did not have an opportunity, Congressman Kiley, who serves on the Transportation and Infrastructure, actually gave a great talk in relationship to the need for funding. And so we know that we have an advocate to help us. But unfortunately, addressing what our transportation needs are is going to be like eating an elephant. We're going to have to do it in small bites. Will we get there? I think we can get there. I think we also need to, and not only doing everything we can possibly in supporting grant activity, putting pressure on elected officials at a state and federal basis, we need to look at legislatively how we can also work to give our residents the ability. I mean, even at 62% for Rockland, almost 63%, that's still a large portion when you think that you have 38% that are almost always no's. That's a very solid yes to support it. And to tell that 62%, sorry, is really a tough pill to swallow. Yeah. So, we need to work aggressively as a board. We need to work individually as our elected positions allow to help advocate, to support grant activity, to support this staff in their efforts to move forward, and to legislatively push those who are in the roles at a state and federal level to help us to secure the funds, but also to hopefully legislate so that we can give the majority the opportunity to actually make that decision, so that in the future we can hopefully reintroduce this, because I think we do need to give our residents the opportunity to do so. And hopefully the groups that are out there will allow residents to make an informed decision and not just vote off of a silly slate mailer, which unfortunately in conversations I've had across our county, we did have some people who just vote based on a mailer. So with that said, I had an opportunity to meet with Matt and Mark Watts, and we had a very detailed discussion about legislatively how things move forward, what is being sought from a Sacramento perspective, and I just ask that we as a team continue to work like we have always. That's what I love about Placer County, is the collaborative nature of how we do things to help ensure that we are moving forward. Some of these projects are just going to have to be approached one little step at a time, but we'll get there. $25 million in a RAISE grant is a good step forward. It's only going to do a small portion of what we need, but it's a good step forward. So anyways, appreciate everyone, appreciate the team here who helped advocate for it. Disappointed in the results of Measure B, but we got a lot of work to do now, and it just means we have to be focused in a different way. So thank you.
Yep. Board Member Dowden Cavillo.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to say that I know that it's my understanding that SACOG is only supporting this particular grant, for the RAISE grant for us, correct? So I think that's great news. I am the chair of the policy committee for SACOG this year. I will be back east, Washington, D.C. lobbying, and so certainly this will be on our minds as well, so on behalf of SACOG. So there is that regional cooperation that will continue to happen, and so that's good news. This wasn't something that came before Auburn voters, but, clearly Auburn is impacted as well. And so, I'm sorry to see the results, but I will do everything I can to help facilitate the additional funding to make the improvements that are needed there on 65. As someone that drives it regularly with a child at Western Sierra Collegiate Academy, I firsthand know the impact. So, again, I'll do everything that I can do, and thank you for everyone that's worked so hard and diligently to attempt to move this forward. And also, Matt, I liked your thinking outside the box about ways that we can help to facilitate, moving people over if they're going on to Auburn and so forth. I think there's something to be said in thinking outside the box to help that traffic, and so I would support, continuing in that line of thinking as well. And I'll talk to James about that too, because there may be things we just don't know, technologies and, practices that can assist us too, so, but thank you.
Thanks. Others? Just open. Yeah.
Just a comment. Thanks, Matt, for everything you did to inform me to help try to push it while I was running my campaign as well. A lot of negative feedback I got was, no matter what tax is there, we're not going to vote for them, good or bad. Even when you try to give them the information that, hey, a lot of our sales tax comes from the auto mall, it comes from the mall, it's coming from outside our residents of Placer County, they didn't care. And I didn't think that message was relayed to them very well, just because when I was out there trying to explain it to them, the information I got from you trying to advocate for it, they just weren't hearing it. And again, going back to Ken Broadway's statement that it's on the slate, and I noticed with the people helping me with my campaign, when my numbers fell, that number fell as well. And then when I came back, it didn't come back. So we know who the demographics are. Again, my friends, people who voted for me are not going to vote for a tax that they just don't understand. So probably in the future, just to advocate more, to explain to them more from what I heard, and what I had to tell them, they didn't know. So that's my message back.
Thanks.
So thank you guys.
Anyone? Yeah.
Yeah, I first wanted to just echo the gratitude for everybody's hard work, and also my frustration with you guys. And even though Loomis was not included in this, I did, though, immediately. I wanted you to know, because this does impact Loomis, and that's what I was trying to message. So immediately when we realized that Measure B did not pass, so before I start that, I wanted just to say thank you, though, for the quick pivot and redirection of trying to find more funding, right, other options. So I just want to applaud this body, applaud you, Matt. But also, so I when I was giving that report that you had started to find other funding options, I was reminding the people of Loomis that traffic is one of their main complaints in the town of Loomis. And with Measure B not passing, what that means is that traffic from Sierra College down 193 coming through, traffic from 12 Bridges, Midas, you know what I mean? Because that traffic goes both ways. A lot of Loomis people going to, and Rockland people going through, cut through Midas and all those different things. So it does impact every single one of these projects up and down the 80 and the 65. It does impact every single one of our communities, because we all use these things. And council member or director Broadway here, we've had these many conversations, and it behooves all of us to get behind every single one of these. So like Alice, you have my full support to however we can help champion all of these things. But I definitely think that whether we were included or not, I think the next few years, because time is a funny thing, right? Time really starts to make people think of different issues in a different light, depending on how it's adversely affecting them at that particular time. So I have a feeling that potentially communicating these things better, because like Loomis had the same kind of issues about our own local tax for our schools. People do. They feel like you said, with SB1 and, you know, coming off of that, people just feel overtaxed and they don't see the difference of this, a local tax staying here as opposed to all the other taxes that California gives us, and that LA gets it all and that we don't see any of it. Or Sacramento, right? Because that's a lot of Placer County residents' problems, is that we see all of our money going to Sacramento and we're fighting to get any of that money back. So anyways, communication, I totally agree with that. I would love to see Loomis come in to this if we ever are able to do that again. But one other just quick question I did have, or two questions. Was this was FM3 that did these, is that right? And then these projected numbers of support and hard no's, were those are all pretty much tracked right along, was that correct?
They did. FM3's
Okay.
work was great, and it was that hard no of 28%, right? So we had that 72 ceiling. And I look at the measure that you all passed in Loomis, and congratulations on that, right? And that was a re-up of a quarter cent
Right.
for a library. So just as a case study example, it wasn't new, it was a re-up.
Yeah.
It was for children, and it was a quarter, not a half, and you got 71. Right?
But
So you
also for children, for our school, it did not pass because they didn't understand.
Right.
Right, but to your point, the continuation, but not a new one.
Right.
So to your point, yeah.
The point being that hard 28 is there.
Yeah.
Right. There's just, and I don't judge it. I don't sit here and go that I feel very overtaxed personally.
Right,
So
right.
I get it.
Right, right.
But that's the point. So at 66.67, we've got 5 1/3 points to play with
Yeah.
that we can only lose. And no matter how much messaging we spend and how much money we spend on that, can you move that 5.33% to get to a 66.67? And I would say if you look at historically what we've done and the good work that we've done, that is just a very high bar. So it brings me to two things. What can we do collectively with our partners to have that bar lowered to something that
Right.
doesn't disenfranchise 62% of our residents? Because
Right.
really, that's the other way we could talk about the story. 62% of Southwest Placer was disenfranchised. They voted for it, and not only did this entity lose, but they all lost. They wanted it. Is that fair in today's world when
Right.
people get 51 and claim mandates? So, 66.67 is hard. And then two, we have to solve for State Road 65. So how do we focus in on that corridor? And because the voters did say, outside of that, I don't feel that. There's nothing in this for me. I don't feel that daily impact, so I'm not as interested. And that's very logical. I don't begrudge them that no vote when they don't deal with that every day. I understand that. So how do we, from a solutions perspective, focus in on that 65 and 80? That corridor. And that's, I think, the direction we have to go as a body. That's the responsibility we have to the public.
I agree. I just, this map right here was very startling to me.
Yeah.
And so we really have a lot of ground to make up, but I agree. We definitely need to start thinking outside of the box. So it's time. Happy New Year. It's good to
Yeah.
be back, to get back to work.
Yeah,
It's
well,
really-
and we didn't present all of the data because there was more, but we actually did also look at this and by precinct and what those precinct percentages were for the presidential, whether they were red or blue. And they honestly, we have more of that data. It was sort of beyond the scope of today, but it didn't really track. So it wasn't that blue voters all wanted it and red voters didn't. That wasn't true. There was a lot of red voters who voted for it and blue voters who didn't. It came down to their proximity of the corridor. That's really what it was.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, if I might, and Board Member Dowden Caveo, thank you. If I might just pick up on the disenfranchisement of 62%. If they were to put forth a citizens, if they were to organize, then the threshold would be 55, right?
Is it 50 plus one, right?
50 plus one? Okay,
I believe it's 50 plus one.
that's great. So,
I was
mean,
confused the other day on that one too.
Yeah, so it's great to hear, appreciate the creativity. One thing that's not on here, percentages can be deceiving, is just the basic number.
Yeah, the raw.
So, for instance, and this goes to your point, I've been involved in a lot of campaigns over my lifetime, and you start with 40, 40, and 20, and you're battling for the hearts and minds of that 20. This case, we had to get 25 or 30. So it's always that, and then there are folks who just go, oh, I just voted no on everything, right? And they just vote no, no matter how close they are to somebody who's has a vested interest in that. The other thing is the largest population of voting was Roseville. And so that percentage is deceiving. The other aspect of it, and I didn't find it, I'll find it and send it to you guys, or maybe I already did. But my recollection is there were 25,000 voters who didn't mark a yes or a no for the measure in Roseville, just in Roseville.
Yeah, yeah.
It's easy to get 1% of those folks or 10% of those folks, and then you have a different outcome, right?
Yeah.
And it is, and this is, so while you look at percentages, and that's instructive, yet you look at the numbers, and there's always a drop-off, right? There's always a drop-off. Like, maybe you should have started, maybe the campaign should say, start on the back with the B.
Yeah.
And vote yes, and then go up to, but anyway, thanks for your creativity. I saw Congressman Kiley's message in his representative report and was encouraged by that. But anyway, people are gonna, so we'll have a path forward.
Yep, absolutely.
We'll stop them right there at Blue Oaks. Put them all on a tram. Anyway, anything else?
Supervisor Jones.
Oh, I'm sorry, Director, Board Member.
Are you positive that it wasn't the Republican vote that kind of turned things? Because this particular election, brought out a lot of Republicans, and you had that message. It was driven by the Central Committee, I would imagine.
Right. What we can say, and when you look at it by precinct, because you can't get to the granular level of every individual vote and how they ticked president, how they ticked Measure B. So we have to, what I'm just saying is there's just not a stark correlation where those that went, let's say the precinct went 70% Trump, went 70% no on Measure B. There wasn't that sort of exact correlation. Right. Did the red votes vote no for Measure B in a higher percentage than the blue votes? Yes. But to me, it's very instructive that the geography, because what we're selling in this tax, what we're pitching is very specific solutions for the tax, and that proved to be true in the after-action review of the data. Those precincts and those voters who felt, I might be a red voter, I might be a party line voter, but if I'm in Lincoln and I deal with 65 6 days a week, I'll vote for this. It's in my vested best interest too, and I did.
Well, I think that's probably why you saw Lincoln, but quite
absolutely.
honestly, the motto for conservatives is no on any tax increase.
Right.
Even if it benefits them.
Even if it benefits everybody, and that's why we tried to convince people that this was not a tax. I told them you could consider it like a tax on driving on our roads.
Yeah.
So in the sense that more people coming outside of our county are going to be paying to drive on our roads to come into this county, and that it wouldn't be us. Our burden might be $60 a year for a family of 4.
Yeah.
Whereas if you get everybody else coming in with their family of 4, from other counties to shop and buy, large ticket items and all this kind of spend the day in Placer County. So that makes sense. In a lot of the meetings that I went to, my neighborhood associations and stuff, people who asked what that is and why should we vote yes, once you explain it to them, they all think, wow, well, that's a different, I didn't think about that. And so they were more likely to vote on it. But like in this election, I would avoid putting this on the next in 4 years, because it's going to be another heavy Republican election in 4 years. That's the game I would play.
Yeah, that's what I saw exactly, was that demographic.
There's just like no on any taxes. You want to increase it?
Good or bad?
No,
Yeah.
they don't read any of it.
Yeah.
And somehow we have to get more out there, whether it's more mailings or more social media. We have to change the message. It can't be a half a cent sales tax increase. It has to be improve the community for everyone and let the outsiders pay.
Well, thank you. I want to say thank you for doing what you did. I think it's common knowledge, whether it's a ballot measure or in life, you know, we all have our perspectives and experiences. And the adage that comes to mind is, because I would get, you know, people from Glenn County and Butte County going, hey, I was in your city, spent some dollars there, you know, and traveled a great distance. But the old adage is true. My mind's made up. Don't try to change it with the facts. But thank you for trying to do that. That's really important. Dan, and then, yeah.
Yeah, so great comments. I think really the question is, when would we, if at all, you know, reconsider this, right? 2 years is definitely too soon. 4 years maybe. 6 years, I don't know. What we have seen is that historically there was, you know, within the geographic area that currently exists for this measure, there was supermajority support. That support has eroded by about 5 points over the last 8 years. We don't know if that's going to continue to erode or if it's going to rebound and come back in the positive direction. And that'll depend on a lot of things that none of us are in control of. What we are in control of is when we go out and kind of test the appetite of the public to consider this again, and that takes a lot of time, a lot of staff resources, a lot of cash resources. But what we have seen consistently is that the professional polling consultants that we've worked with have been correct in terms of the information they've provided us. You know, when we got the initial poll results and we're deciding, are we going to go forward or not, it was like we're a little bit underwater, but, you know, I think there was optimistic viewpoints that maybe we could move that needle. Turned out we couldn't. And doing the polling work doesn't require anywhere near the level of organizational investment as actually putting an item on the ballot and going through with the whole shebang. So the polling has to be done, generally it's a year to a year and a half in advance of putting something on the ballot measure. Again, I think trying to do something in 2 years, it doesn't make any sense. 4 years, probably not, but there'll probably be this fundamental question: do we want to go get the information 2.5 years from now to see if anything's moved or not, or do we want to wait and potentially not go get that information again for another 4.5 or 5 years? So, in my mind, as it relates, we obviously need to do everything we can with what we've got to address these issues in the near term. I don't think we should completely lose sight of the possibility, because, you know, we're within spitting distance, right? And we've been on the positive side previously, so it's not a foregone conclusion that it can't happen. We just it's probably going to require forces outside of our entire control within the electorate to kind of move that move that support in a positive direction. Yep. So it's really just a question of how often we go back and get the data to evaluate that. And I don't think we need to worry about it for the next couple of years, but whether or not we want to have a conversation about polling, you know, 2.5 or 3 years from now, it's probably worthwhile.
Yep.
Yeah,
Board Member Brown? Oh, I'm sorry.
That's it.
Yeah, based on a lot of the feedback that I've heard from.
Right in front of you.
There's a hole.
There you go.
There you go. Okay. Thank you. So based on a lot of the feedback that I've heard from everyone, I consider myself very green still, and very optimistic. Some of the things that I've heard is when information was shared, it was information that was new for the first time. They didn't know, and so in our efforts, I think that I'm very optimistic that it really comes down to education to the public. Firsthand education, not just staff, because I believe that staff did a really good job. I attended several that Matt put on in our city, and I also believe that one of the things that we faced was, some revenue that we needed for our general fund and for the police officers and the firefighters that we had on. And we were facing that and then worked really closely with Placer County to make a solution so that we weren't going to hinder the Measure B for this area. And I think that that also gave exposure to our residents in Lincoln as well. But not just on Measure B, but I think pretty much anything when it comes down to the community, it's not just, and I agree there are going to be those that are going to just be like, no matter what, right? I mean, there's just no taxes. They're just super conservative. But I think that in my opinion, it's just a smaller percentage of people that follow that demographic. And
You can convince them if you can reach them. If you can reach
Sure,
them,
right.
that's the whole problem.
And
reaching them.
it really does, I believe it comes down to that. And
And
how
we
hard are we going to
appreciate-
work to
Yeah, and we
make sure we get
And we
that?
appreciate Lincoln helping us and cooperating with us. Sorry that it didn't work.
We'll continue to fight for them.
Director DiMattei, did you have something else?
No, I'm
to add?
good, thank you.
Okay. Unless there's anything else, thank you for the report, and, I think the 62% will rise up and say, hey, I thought you solved this for us. Because I suspect that a lot of them thought it was 50%, right?
Yeah,
And they're
I
probably
think-
thinking, oh, hey, it passed, where are the improvements, so.
Yeah, and I think, and I appreciate all of the feedback and comments, and I appreciate what Director Wilkins is saying too, because we still have 12 to 14,000 houses coming.
Yep.
And they're all assuming they're gonna plug into 65 and come south. And I haven't, now, we are not a land use agency besides the airport, we don't review those things, but I haven't seen in their specific plans any new roads. And I haven't seen anybody say they need new roads. So that's where they're coming. So that average delay of 8 minutes right now that inspired people to vote how they vote, that's, in a decade, that's gonna be 20. And if every time you want to leave Lincoln, it's 20 minutes,
Oh, yeah.
maybe those percentages will get high enough to crest the 2/3.
Matt, the big billboard there when you're southbound on 65, right about Galleria?
Yeah.
We ever think to say, are you tired of this congestion? Vote yes.
I do believe the campaign, which I wasn't involved in, did finally get it. There was some, I think UAIC had that bound up or now we can just, put up there, just, buckle up, calm down, just, it's gonna be a minute.
Well,
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Reading into your day.
there are, I'm sorry to drag this on a little bit longer, but I was at an event in Newcastle and needed to get to the Placer County Law Enforcement Award Ceremony. And that night, somebody had a crash north of Blue Oaks, and it was backing up on 80 from westbound. And I was just sitting there going, sheep. And had that happened, we would have had 78%, right? Everybody in Lincoln, it was pretty congested that night. So anyway, sorry to drag us.
No.
Can we have your executive director's report, or did we just get that?
Sure. We can have the report. And so this first slide, most of you saw this in December. I did want to bring it back, a few little updates, but I really wanted to bring this back for Directors DiMattei and Brown, just to get you up to speed on some of our grant activity. So we already spoke about it, but the RAISE grant for southbound 65, that's 25 million federal. That's due next Tuesday. We reviewed draft 3 today. This morning, and so we'll be ready to go. And thank you, Director Broadway, for helping us with some of those last letters of support. We have got Congressman Kiley, we have got Beale Air Force Base, we have got UAIC, we have the 3 chambers support. So we have all the support we need. Just a little bit off the cuff, we have a new administration. And, the president made a major announcement yesterday and canceled all future NEVI funding, which I think some of you have been involved in your cities. So
Near zero emission.
the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure is the N National, yeah. So he's halted all NEVI, and so the point of that is that we have written our RAISE grant based on what the scoring criteria is, and that scoring criteria can change. So we're doing our best job to pivot on that and to really talk about the fundamental sort of mobility and safety and economic development functions that will be solved for by this roadway widening. So we are in a fluid situation with a new administration coming on board, and what they evaluated raise grants on January 13th, which was the last round, and now the 30th. Those will be different reviews. So we're trying to hit a moving target here as we look to put forward a very successful raise grant. But so that's ongoing. As far as the second bullet, Placer Sac Gateway, SCCP, that is something that's got $26.4 million in there for Placer. David submitted that in December, and we'll find out results mid-year. That is something that myself, James Corliss, others will be working on to, working to talk with CTC and folks like that to give ourselves the best opportunity to bring those dollars home. And then third, Placer Sackway Gate Plan update. You might say, well, that's only $520,000, but that is the umbrella plan under which we have received a lot of money to date, including the I-80 aux lane. So to date, we've gotten $117 million in solutions funding and $16 million in TCEP. And that money was all, which required further grant activity, but the reason for that, the framework, the umbrella for that is the Gateway Plan. And that plan is now cycling out of date and needs to be updated. And that's what that third bullet is about. And we're submitting that today. Can you give me the next slide? So yes, please.
Sorry.
No, go right
interrupt,
ahead. Yes,
just wanted
Director.
to go back.
Yes.
You had mentioned, I always want to say Mayor Broadway, sorry.
Former-
Director Broadway.
former mayor, yeah.
You had mentioned that he had wrote you a letter, and
Of
I just
support.
asked Supervisor
about
Jones if the county has
county?
given you
Yeah,
anything.
yeah, we've
It's
got
not that
county.
we would give you more.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever it
No,
would
no.
take.
Yeah,
So just,
sorry.
sorry to interrupt that.
No, we do have public works support and a letter from the county. We actually even have a letter for raise from Caltrans, which is remarkable, that they will actually construct it. We have letters from SACOG, so we have a full, it is a very robust and very complete application. So every box we're supposed to tick, we've ticked,
Okay.
and then some.
Whatever
Yeah.
you need.
Yeah,
Okay.
No, thank you.
Yeah, if you need from the supervisors, because we're members, the
Right,
two of us
right.
can
Yeah.
do a letter for you too.
Yeah, whatever
Okay.
you need. Yeah,
Okay.
sorry to interrupt that.
No,
Thank you.
no. And then just, looking at 2025 ahead, Corey spoke to the RTP and everything we're working on there. And, that's one of those fundamental things that we exist to do. That's one of the reasons the RTPA exists as an entity. And so we're doing that, but we've got some other kind of cool stuff going on. Our zero emission vehicle, our ZEV study, that $1.2 million study that we were awarded, that will kick off next week. If you remember, we awarded that last December to ICF. So that's getting going, which is very exciting because much like the Gateway Plan, this will be in an umbrella document where we will then, at the end of that planning process, have piloted projects that we can go seek real dollars to construct and operate. So, real mobility solutions for the county. What we're affectionately calling ETERP, so get used to hearing that over the next couple of years, ETERP. It's the Evacuation and Transportation Resiliency Plan. That's a $730,000 planning effort. We're doing that in partnership with the county's OES office. OES provided the local match. We're in the middle of procurement right now. We'll be releasing an RFP at the end of the month.
If I might
Please.
take a moment of personal privilege.
Yeah.
If you move that E and you say transportation evacuation resiliency plan,
Oh,
it would
University
be
of
an homage to
Maryland.
my alma mater,
Yeah.
the University of Maryland.
Fear the vest. Fear the
Okay.
vest, Jim
All right.
Tressel.
Continue on.
Okay. I actually went to a Florida State Maryland game once, and that was a rowdy student body. That's an offline conversation. ETERP. All right, we could maybe call it TERP.
That's what I
We'll
was suggesting.
figure that out.
Suggesting.
Just moving on, so that's away from the studies. Moving into something that Mike's working on, the South Placer Transit Information Stories campaign. You've heard him come before you last year about a lot of the marketing updates. One of the cooler things we're doing, not that it's not all cool, is they're going to be getting transit riders to use their phones to basically tell little short stories about how public transit has helped and worked for them. So that's a marketing plan that Mike's undertaking with member entities. And don't worry, we'll edit all these videos before they go live. That's going to be a way to promote transit usage through social and traditional media. So that's going to be fun. And then Director Don Calvillo has left, but she had already heard. And I'm almost nervous to talk about it because this is the project that just keeps giving me love. And it's the sidewalk gap closure project. It has been awarded by Caltrans. There was a point over Christmas break, we did not think it was going to get awarded, and we were maybe going to have to turn back $9 million. We got it through Caltrans Office of Civil Rights, and the primary #1 bidder has been awarded, so that will start construction in spring. And that's $9.8 million. That's a really important basic safety project to make sure kids going to school can get to school safely. So with that, I'll end my remarks. Thank you, Director Haudeshelt. Or Chair Haudeshelt.
And I would just add that, we have a really strong team at SACOG. I'm Vice Chair of the Transportation Committee.
And I'm just joining the Transportation Committee this year.
Fantastic. Vice Mayor Gallardo, Mayor Gallardo is the Vice Chair of the SACOG Board. You're on CCJPA as an alternate, right? And Director Broadway is on CCGBA. I'm the chair of the Catholic Court Joint Powers Authority. So we've got a strong team and Mayor Hollywood Andreatta, Mayor Wood Andreatta, I can't do that, is on the SACOG board. So we have a strong team at SACOG, and we have a good partner there. So anyway, board direction to staff. I think it was just to send around that video.
If I may, as
yeah,
well, Mr.
absolutely.
Chair. Matt, depended upon, thoughts from staff in this area, but given Member Wilkins' comments relative to time frame and how we approach the potential for a measure in the future, I think it would be helpful for the board to understand the different types, the type of legislative work that's being done relative to reduction of that threshold, should that threshold be reduced, the different approaches that would be available, so that the board's aware going from a 67 to 50+1 is a significant change. So subject to that occurring, the chair had also mentioned a citizen initiative, what a citizen initiative looks like, what that would entail and the requirements, as that would also reduce it to the 51. Now, also going back, the comment of reducing that threshold, actually had that moved forward, which it did not successfully move forward, transportation had been stripped out of it. So we wouldn't have been included regardless, but that was 55%, which was mentioned earlier. So having a better understanding of those factors and thoughts about polling, thoughts about how we would approach this, whether there's a desire on a citizens initiative, which has significant cost because that also requires a signature effort. And that can be 250, 300,000 or more. So I think it would be helpful and a potential discussion topic for the board if interested. So thank you.
All right. Any other direction to the board? To the director, to staff? All right. Okay, there are a number of informational items in your packet that I encourage you to peruse, especially the Capitol Quarter Monthly Service Performance Report. And we will now adjourn to closed session. Closed session is pursuant to Government Code 54957, Public Employee Performance Evaluation of the Executive Director. Read the whole thing? Read the whole thing? So the closed session pursuant to Government Code 54957.6 will have a conference with the labor negotiator and the agency's designated representative, that would be me, and the unrepresented employee, the executive director. So we'll now adjourn to closed session in the conference room. Closed session, and there is no reportable action out of closed session. But we will now move to our open session item, which is to approve the Executive Director Employment Agreement Amendment, potential action to approve an amendment to the Executive Director's employment, including compensation. And I'll ask Director Broadway to take us through that.
Right, so it is, let me turn this on. It is recommended that the board approve an amendment to Executive Director Matt Click's employment agreement to amend his annual salary to $316,055, and that be applied retroactively to begin January 1st of 2025, and that additionally, the language in the Executive Director's Agreement be clarified to state that the Executive Director receives the COLA as applied annually to all other members of the PCTPA staff.
Right. Is it, that's in the form of a motion, and we'll take a second on that.
I'll second.
All right. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Those abstaining? I will say that there was a lot of love in the room and a lot of appreciation. And, just keep on doing the incredible job you're doing, and thank you very much. I mean, that's what I'll say publicly, and privately I'll share other things, but, yeah. Unless Deanne tells me I'm off base.
Well, I just want to say, it's always interesting to do this in public, and after 25 years of the private sector, it's something new to get used to. But thank you. I really appreciate the board's support, not just for me, but everything I do is because of the staff in front of me, to the side of me, and behind me. And we do this all together. So I appreciate the confidence you have in me, and by extension, the confidence you have in the agency and staff. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and I'll let you jump in here in a second. And, that's appreciation for the team you've built here and the quality of the work they do, so, as well. So, yeah. Director Jones, did you want to say?
Yes, I'd like to add to that. You've hit on it just a little bit, but it's in large part because of you building the confidence in your staff, and that you have lost no one in your staff. Shows their confidence, expressed to us their confidence in you, all of you. And so we took that into consideration as well. Everyone on your team.
Great.
Everyone on your team.
We'll let the Love Fest continue. Director Cortez, did you want to add anything to that?
Well, thank you. Just what I've said to you before. I mean, we definitely believe in making sure that you know how appreciated you are, right? Talk is cheap, we can say it, but if your compensation doesn't reflect our gratitude. So we're very grateful. You've done amazing things. You've like she said, you've retained all your staff, you've saved a ton of money. I mean, your list of accomplishments, and so yeah, we're just super grateful. We are grateful to your staff. You have amazing staff, your whole support. So that really is all a testament to your leadership. So we're super grateful, and thank you so much.
Director Broadway?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Matt, again, just reflective of your leadership. So we have an amazing team, and we're thrilled to have you continuing as the leader of that team, and this is our opportunity to recognize that leadership. I think today's meeting was demonstrative of the fact that you are a true leader. You're looking at ways that we can continue to move forward, subject to some things not occurring in the manner we would like, but how we shift, we pivot, and we move forward, and we don't stop. And we're looking forward to your continued leadership, and thank you.
Director DiMattei?
Just again, thanks, Matt. For the last few years, it's been a privilege to work with you. You know, when I first met with you with Supervisor Holmes at the beginning of my race and being on the Planning Commission, again, I think we're very fortunate to have you here and your staff to have you as a here. So thank you, and I look forward to working with you more.
Director Brown?
I would just say thank you again. Although I've worked with you here on PCTPA, obviously as a director, but the times that we've talked and the meetings that I've been at with you, your ability to connect with people is amazing in my opinion, and very part of the reason that I feel like you've been able to assemble and have a great team is because of that communication and connection. So thank you.
Director Wilkins?
Keep up the good work. Thanks.
All right, with that, we are adjourned till when? I didn't look at that. We're adjourned till February.
February 26th.
February 26th. Thank you, everybody.